our work session with an interview with Jeff Mazur this evening. And Jeff has applied for the Personnel Board. And Jeff, I see you on there. So hello, if you can tell us why you've applied to the board and what you think you could bring to the board.
Of course, thanks very much. Again, I'm Jeff Mazur, live here in Webster since 2015 with my wife and my twin 9-year-old daughters. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you all tonight. I want to share that I am interested in serving on this board because based on my communication with some of the city staff that there's a need for someone to serve, and this has been a community that I've loved to be a part of. It's a place that I feel like I owe service to, and that I want to be a part of helping ensure that all of the many pieces of city government can function and do what they need to do so that the city can thrive. So, that's my primary motivating factor for wanting to do this. Also, I think service is important and try to model that. Both my wife and I both do for our daughters because we want them to have that as a part of their life and their responsibility as well. In terms of what I can bring, I'll share just a few qualifications, I guess, such as they are. Not that it's necessary, I don't think, but I am trained as an attorney, and though that's not what my profession is day to day, it is a skill set that I have, and it is training that's a part of who I am. I am familiar with, and during prior jobs in my career, I did work and participate in and from time to time did represent public employees and merit protected employees in administrative hearings. So I am familiar with merit system rules and their administration and the administrative hearings that sometimes do come along with them. I also in that role served for just a year as a chair of a committee that effectively served as the forum of last resort for people who were appealing rulings of the internal judicial panel of the organization for which I worked. So it's been a long time ago now, 10 plus years, but I do have that small bit of sort of adjudication experience in administrative type hearings as well. Mostly, I think I'll bring a spirit of learning to the board and a willingness to help in whatever way I can be most helpful to the city. So I think that's the sum of it. And I'm happy to answer questions about any of that y'all may be interested in.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And I'll see if anyone on the board has, on council have a question for Jeff?
No, I don't.
I'll just add that Jeff is a member of the Sustainability Commission, and he is always in attendance and has jumped right into active engagement. So I think that speaks very highly of him.
Good. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll let you know this evening. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. All right. We can hold that until appointments to boards and commissions. And after our discussion about the Planning Commission, is there anything on the regular agenda that needs to be discussed? If not, we'll go immediately to the meeting issues updates, and I'll just start to my right. And Katie, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Emerson?
No, Mayor. Oh, yes, I do. I just wanted to thank Chief Curtis for sending over some officers on Saturday, help us to Webster Rockfield Ministries with the food drive. Lieutenant McCoy. Yes, Lieutenant McCoy brought another officer, and they were very welcome. They brought fresh bread for us to give out. So it was a really good day that we had with them. So
Thank you.
they plan on making it an event just as often as they can.
Thank you. Good. Pam?
Yes, I do have updates. Last Monday, the Green Space Advisory Commission met, and there were 3 topics that were brought up. The first one was a future trees of distinction, and that's the one that we approved a few months ago about it's a tree endowment, let's say, for the community. So they met with the Parks and Public Works directors and have a list of tree stewards they're going to target to ask if they'd like to have new trees in their front yards in the easement or near their homes in the public right of way. And then Jen Starkey is going to create a mailing and a web page so folks can follow up and apply for those new free trees, and they will be planted by green space volunteers. And then the regular trees of distinction is coming up as well. And so they are actively looking for trees of distinction. Those would be any sort of tree that is outstanding in some shape or form that is visible from a resident's front yard. So we're all encouraged to keep an eye out for those, and those selections will be honored on Arbor Day. And then finally, the Mayors for Monarchs pledge is moving along with a program that's going to be attended by a staff member of the Missouri Botanical Garden, and he's going to speak on Missouri trees and shrubs that support specific native pollinators on April 28th. And then Plan Commission met as well on Monday, the 7th, and they held their second public hearing and passed a new tree ordinance and landscape ordinance, which basically simplified and consolidated the definitions in the code and created a whole new section for that, pulled it out of some of the public works related codes. And then finally, yesterday, several of us attended. Jerry, Mayor Welch, Laura Arnold, and Dr. Peoples and Eric Peterson attended the Missouri Municipal League Legislative Conference in Jefferson City. And we met with Representatives Unzicker, Pfeiffer, Dahl, and Senator Beck to review legislative priorities for our city. And I will let you all add more details if
I
you'd
think
like.
as we go along, we'll do that. You'll have to excuse, some of us are a little exhausted tonight from this too. So I'll pass and pick up on what's not covered.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with some other things first. Last week, I participated in a meeting with Deb Krause and John Donnell from Eden Seminary, along with the Webster Groves Afghan Foundation leadership. As I think most of you know at this point, the Webster Groves Afghan Foundation is trying to bring 2 of the refugee families through the International Institute to Webster Groves. They are still in need of some housing. Eden Seminary is willing to work with them on housing, but we've run into a zoning issue. And the zoning issue is under educational zoning. Eden can only rent their property to students. And obviously some of the family will be students in the schools, but not everyone will be. And so Eden has asked, and the foundation members have asked, if we can explore a way to figure out a waiver. They're asking for limited duration of time and only for 1 or 2 apartments. So it can be a very limited waiver, but to think through how we might be able to do that and probably try and do it quickly, because they really are trying to make arrangements for these families who are arriving daily to our communities. So I put that on the agenda and asked to put that on the agenda and hope that we can have a conversation about that within the next couple of weeks. Second thing, I'm losing my handwriting. Business Development Committee Working Group met with Jenny Starkey to talk about the Explore Webster Groves website redesign. I thought it was a really productive meeting. Jenny's got fantastic ideas. Members of the group had fantastic ideas. So I'm looking forward to that completion. The mayor and the city manager and I met with Jenny Dodson-Weil, who's a community member working on creating a child abuse prevention community partnership. It was an initial meeting, but it seems like something that we as a community have the possibility of really making a difference in participating in. And then I just wanted to shout out the Boy Scouts of Troop 303, who invited me to come talk about civic engagement for their civic engagement badge. I've been to 300 to do it. 303 invited me. And so any other Boy Scouts out there, feel free. It's kind of fun to have an engaged group of young men who want to talk about these things. And I guess now sometimes young women. I also was at Lobby Day. This was my 3rd Municipal League Lobbying Conference. It was the best one I've been to. We saw one of our legislators, well, almost everyone who represents Webster Groves. And I was very impressed with the degree to which they wanted to engage with us about the issues that we brought to them that are important to municipal government. So thank you to them for taking the time to do that.
Thanks, Laura. David?
I have nothing, Mayor.
So you have to all your time.
Neil?
I have nothing, thank you.
Dr. Peoples?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I would just add on to yesterday's visit. Really appreciated spending time with both council members, mayor as well. Our mayor did receive a special shout out from the Missouri Municipal League for her work done on many issues. So that was nice to see as well. And it was just, we're gonna have to figure out a way to have more of those visits because there's clearly a lot of work to be done. And it
Mhm.
was interesting to me that our representatives were not only so eager to meet with us, but they hadn't had a lot of other visits. And so that shows that there's room, in my opinion, to have additional visits, additional input, and to make sure that we're sharing Webster Grove's issues. So it was a day well spent and look forward to next year and additional council members going. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. And I'll add to the MML conference, in the bulk of the work, I think, was done by Pam and Laura and Marie and Eric, who really tromped around that Capitol while I sat in meeting after meeting.
Doesn't
And
sound like it was much fun.
it wasn't, well, it was okay. And did manage to get into the Capitol to say hello to a few key people in the Capitol. So I think it was an extremely productive day. And I'm glad that this group went because I think that made a huge difference to have this wonderful block of folks. The only other thing I want to add is that we met last week with Vatterott Properties that owns Douglas Manor. And the police, fire, Dr. Peoples, Mara, and I met with them. We had almost a 2-hour meeting with them, and a lot of issues were laid out, and they were extremely receptive. And as I believe they were very, very receptive, took pages of notes and established some people connections with some of the issues that we identified there. And I think we're on our way to making some changes there in the short term. In the short term, I mean soon, but there are also some possibilities in the long term of making some more substantial changes there. And we will continue to follow through with that. And as I said, even when I'm gone, I intend to stay involved with that ability or prospect of doing something to change Douglas Manor into a much more productive building. And I think the possibility is there. So, okay, let's go on to our topics. The first topic is the Community Engagement Board. And I think, Dale, are you going to be part of this discussion? All right. Well, what you have in front of you are some changes that have been proposed with the Police Community Engagement Board. They have been through that board. That board has had some really good folks who are very interested in making this a very effective board. And Kevin Sombart is there who may want to say a word or two about the board.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, when this board started, this was kind of a new adventure for all of us. And so the original board members, we tried to come up with a plan based on the existing charge that was issued under the ordinance. And, you know, we made a lot of good progress. We've met with several groups within the community. We have an outstanding membership on the board, though we've had some of those leave the board. It's been a little bit difficult to keep members, you know, engaged and on the board. And it's, you know, it's been a challenge because it was new. So we were trying to come up with various ways to engage and improve engagement between the Webster Groves community and the police department. So I think we're almost full now with board members. I think we're still looking for a business owner to join the board. But again, it's been a very it's been a great group to work with. I was the first board chair I'm stepping in for Katie, who's the current acting chair. Um, and we're going to be hopefully electing a new board chair within the next few meetings. Once we have a full board in place. That being said, the Alliance for Interracial Dignity recommended some changes to the existing ordinance to give us the ability to hold ourselves more accountable for what we believed was necessary within the community. And the board unanimously approved after a couple of changes that were made through that communication with the Alliance. The revision of the existing ordinance that will continue our work into the future. And I'm assuming you all have that document that was presented to you at some point, but it was a unanimous decision that the language within the ordinance be changed and modified to expand the board membership, including adding a Webster University student to the board and reducing the age of the youth liaison, because we've had a difficult time with a youth liaison being able to attend the meetings. And we think it's important. And we kind of expanded it to, they don't have to be actually going to Webster Groves High School, but they do need to reside in the city of Webster Groves, but they don't need to attend a school within Webster Groves, according to the language of the revised language of the ordinance. We also think that the ordinance provides some accountability for the board to report back to the city council, the city manager, and the police chief on what actions we would like to pursue during any particular year, and what results we have accomplished during that year. So really, it's to expand the charge a bit to further improve the engagement between the community and the city of Webster Groves. Not only those that live here, but those who work and play here as well. And we also thought that it was important to specify some language that we wanted to make sure that the values and priorities of the Webster Groves community were a part of this ordinance, so that any historical inequities in policing would be addressed in the process.
All right, let's take a look at this and see any questions or comments that council members have on the ordinance that is before you with the proposed changes.
Kevin, thank you very much for your service on this board. I know it probably hasn't been easy getting off the ground running, but you've done a marvelous job. I just had a few questions. First, how will the youth liaison be selected?
Well, historically in the past, the youth liaison is selected through one of the board members is a representative from the Webster Groves High School at this point. And so that individual then speaks with those students at Webster Groves High School that may be interested in serving on the board. The earlier ordinance, essentially the age would mean that it would be either a junior or a senior in high school, which means they were not available to be on the board for a very long period of time. So it limited the pool of those potentially interested that were in the high school. As far as reaching out to those students attending other high schools that live in Webster Groves, I do not have an answer to that question.
Understood, and that's something we as council can figure out. The other question I have is the oddity of this board compared to our other boards is the appointment process, where the mayor has sole discretion with only the advice and consent of council. is there any opposition from the board if we were to go back to or revert to how we typically pick board members for our other boards and commissions, which is a quorum vote of the entire council?
Where do you see that? Because it does say here, city council shall select members of the board.
Right. Yeah, under section 4.1205. I think the very first paragraph, which is paragraph 1, says city council shall select members with attention to their competency for public engagement and the board's purpose. I know when I went through the interview process, I interviewed with the city council.
Absolutely, but the ultimate decision, I think that what I'm asking, I guess what I'm saying is that I'm interested in potentially amending this appointment process where it just lines with the typical appointment process to any other board and commission.
Yeah, sorry, Kevin, I don't mean to speak for you, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But what I believe, Councilman Franklin, is that the board wouldn't have an objection to that. I think it was just a misunderstanding with the way that the council operates in selecting the members. So I'm fairly certain that they would be comfortable with that. It's just, like I said, a misunderstanding in the wording they put in there didn't fit what actually happens.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Ethan. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep. Yeah. I don't think the board would have any issues with that either.
No, and Neil, maybe you can help us out to put the correct language, because I don't think this was intended to be any different than it is with any other board or commission, is that the mayor simply makes the appointment by making that announcement.
Right.
One of the things I wanted to point out on here that is different, that we really ought to be thinking about, is under the membership qualifications. We're asking that board members complete training focused on the role that systems and institutions play in maintaining racial inequity. And so there's a training component that is required here that is not part of any other board. And it's something, you know, I don't have an opinion about it. I just wanted to point that out, that it is different.
I really don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you to the PCEB membership, as well as Chief Curtis and our liaison, Mayor Welch, because I think this was in my time on the council, this was the first time I've seen a commission really engage with the community and thinking about what their job was and how this ordinance might be changed in a way to help you all define the mission that we sort of in the first ordinance more vaguely set for you. So I appreciate the collaborative effort and just wanted to commend you all on that.
And I would just like to tag on to Laura's comments. I do appreciate the commission sticking in there when your members were kind of decreasing at a time, making decisions. So, but there was those that stood there. You still had your meetings, you still had conversations, and you were still focused on how to improve. So thank you for that.
Anything else? I guess the next step must be to clean this up, correct, Neil and Marie, and clean it up and bring it to the next council meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if there are no other questions or issues? Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much. Our next topic is the Traffic Advisory Commission, and I don't know who is leading that discussion.
We can figure that out.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, ma'am. So I'm gonna
Or what are we discussing?
put Chief Curtis on the spot there as well. So you have some backup documentation, and I don't believe there's been an incredibly recent meeting, but these issues are still forthstanding from the last meeting. And I apologize. I believe council asked that this topic come back for discussion, but I don't recall what the specific discussion points were.
Thank you, because I
So-
appreciate that. I don't either.
And maybe we shouldn't have a meeting after MML again. I don't know. But,
I don't know. I don't remember it either, but perhaps Dale does. Chief Curtis,
Curtis.
can you help us out here with our bad memories?
Well, we did actually have a meeting of the Traffic Commission, and there were a couple of issues specifically that were up for a vote. And what I received from the council was that we wanted to invigorate that because it's been quite a while since we've been able to do it, mainly because of COVID and some other issues. So the board did meet, they elected a chair, and they did take up the issues that were petitioned by a couple of citizens, and then also through a petition about parking issues and also a traffic issue on West Glendale. They recommended against, hopefully you have the study that was done on West Glendale. They recommended against increasing or decreasing the speed limit and then posting a stop sign there. And then as far as the parking request, they voted to deny the request for the people who were asking for additional restrictions for student parking. What basically was it? It was restricted parking from 8 to 9 and from, I believe it was from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. And again, that should be in the documentation or in the backup there. So if you have any questions about that, about what happened in the meeting, unfortunately, we were able to get the chair for the TAC here, and Jillian, who was at the meeting and really probably has a little more background because she was there, took bereavement leave. So I'm going off the minutes from the meeting. If you have any questions or anything that I can answer.
So we've rejuvenated the Traffic Advisory Board.
Yes,
We have the board. We have a chair.
yes,
We have an opportunity for regular meetings.
yes.
So I think part of the reason this came back is that one of the members of the board suggested reviewing all the current parking restrictions around the high, well, not all of them, restrictions on Joy and Mason, and I will disclose that I live on Mason, and you can imagine I've heard from my neighbors about this. But have asked that the topic be added to the next agenda. And so part of the question, I think, is, are we as a council going to say, go ahead and do a parking study? I believe the chief's recommendation is that it's been working fine going through a case by case, because that was in the backup too. Am I right about that?
That's correct.
Case by case basis would be
That-
your preference of the department, but the
that-
question is, do we as a council want to give the Traffic Advisory Commission any other instructions?
Right, that was our recommendation, and I don't want to say it's been working perfectly fine, but it's worked. I don't think you're ever going to be able to get a solution that's going to fit perfectly and make everyone happy. But historically, and if you took a look at the memo, what we've been able to do is address it, and it has been piecemeal, but it's done, I think, again, just for the majority of the people that have concerns and for the inconveniences that have happened. I believe it's addressed those for the most part. I think that if we return to trying to look at a study of the whole area and try and redo things, that what it's probably going to do is cause more issues that have already been settled.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I think we're done with the Traffic Advisory Commission, and we can move on to appointments to boards and commissions.
Mayor, if I can, just real quick, and I apologize, I've been better prepared for this issue, but looking at the backup documentation, and you all may recall, you did receive several letters from community members on this topic. They're not in this packet. It dates back a few meetings ago. I do suspect that this issue will continue to come to the council in terms of asking for the recommendation of how the police department moves forward. What caught my eye that was interesting was there's also the comments from students of the high school, concerned with how they park, where they can park, and that there's already so many restrictions. Not that the students' commentary necessarily outweighs community concerns as well, but this is probably going to be a pretty hefty topic when it does move forward, or should it move forward?
I was going to say, if I recall correctly, part of the problem was that over the past 4 years, we enacted the restriction, or we gave the specialized parking for the library, pushing more parking farther into the park.
Mhm.
And then the additional parking over there by the, where Webster Arts is now, and created more restrictions there. So it's just what it's doing, if I recall correctly from the complaints, is that it's pushing more and more parking into the park. And so the
Yes.
question is, why?
It's not just the park, it's also along Swan.
Swan?
Yes, yes, it's really bad along Swan.
And there might not be there isn't an easy
Right.
solution, otherwise it
Mhm.
would have been resolved, but I mean, Chief, I completely understand your notion that like on a case by case basis, but maybe, maybe the best thing to do is present this in an open session for all of council to see this meeting material. That way the public can see it too and understand the historical reasons why we have X, Y, or Z, and just give them background information. And then we as councils can maybe then direct the Traffic Advisory Commission as to what the next steps would be, if any.
Well,
Well,
why wouldn't we start with the Traffic Advisory Commission first?
I
and
think
then
they
have
did
them make a
that.
recommendation to us.
But this, I mean, this is.
I mean, I know, because it's,
this is not new.
Yeah, and frankly, I do not mean to suggest that our Traffic Advisory Commission is not well-equipped with people who have great expertise, but this is the kind of thing that I think would need a professional study. Because we're talking about 15 square blocks at least that's under, no, maybe that's too many, but a significant number of streets that are under some restriction.
It's a significant area. I tried to address it in the middle as much as I could. I mean, it initially started because Webster University did not have parking garages, and the resident-only parking was a result of that.
Right.
Since they've got their garage, and we really did solve that issue, it kind of migrated into the residents in the surrounding area, the high school and the students. Again, we've tried to address that as the serious issues have come up. As we said when we put them in, it has pushed the problem a little further into the neighborhoods. That's not going to be solved unless you remove the restrictions, which is going to cause, I think, additional problems. Honestly, I don't pretend to be a traffic engineer, but I don't think a study is going to give you any more information than what you already have.
Okay.
It's basically you're basically operating off of what the residents' perceptions are, and some of them are accurate, some of them are not. And there's no way not to push more stuff in if you do the restrictions, which is why it's been difficult. We've dealt with it year to year, and I think that's probably as refined as you can get it. But I mean, I'm certainly open if you want to do a traffic study, and I am not the police department doesn't object to you doing any of that. It's just, I'm not sure that you're going to get the results that you're looking for.
I can tell you, this has been an issue forever. And the problem is the high school doesn't have any parking. And so what we really need is a parking garage for high school students. Or perhaps if Webster University's parking garage is not full, maybe there's a way that the high school could work with the university to try to perhaps purchase some spaces there in that parking garage. But until the high school provides parking for its students, there's not much you can do.
I mean, it's become more of a problem over the years because more students people have been able to get cars, and more students are driving than they were 10 or 15 years ago. But it's a difficult issue. I understand the concerns of the residents. I also understand the concerns of the students. So there's not an easy solution to it. But again, I honestly don't believe that if you do a traffic study, that's going to be able to find a consultant that's going to really be able to give you any better answers than what you're just looking at through common sense.
I agree with that, Chief. I think that the science isn't going to prove anymore. This is a policy decision. And I think a perception that I see from this is that we are saying we're going to sacrifice the parking ability of our high school students for the well-being of a manicured neighborhood for those residents. And that's a policy decision that this council has to
Exactly.
look at.
And that's the discussion that the Traffic Advisory Commission members had. So yeah, again, I mean, it's more a political decision, I think, than a scientific data study.
well, it does apply citywide, the whole rationale. So it's just going to identify that.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we've got, schools down at, we've got the university, we've got Nearing's down by Bompart, which we just, added to be business permit only parking too. We've got business districts that are becoming more successful and they need parking. So
Oh,
it
yeah,
is,
parking all
I'm
over.
just saying.
Oh,
it's-
yeah, I agree.
It's
Sorry.
it's a policy and a culture issue.
Yeah.
So, so
All right, anybody else have anything they want to add to this? If not, we'll continue with appointments to boards and commissions. And we have one thing here. We have Jeff Mazer, who has applied for the Personnel Board. I think he would be an excellent candidate. What say you, council members?
I agree.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so we will appoint Jeff Mazer to the Personnel Board. The other issue that we wanted to talk about was the Planning Commission, and I believe we have some really good information here that Katie has put together for us about the Planning Commission. And she has suggested that perhaps we want to hold off until the next meeting because we have two more people to interview. But we have in front of us a really good table of the background and employer of our various members, their terms, whether they're current or seeking reappointment. And is there any question or issue that the council has in discussing this?
What's HTNB?
Planning firm.
Yeah, it is. It's a planning firm.
Okay, it is a planning firm. I
Yeah,
don't need to know more
it's a
than
good
that.
one.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
really good one too. I don't know what it stands for.
There are three positions that are eligible for reappointment, and that, if you wanted to do that, it would be Michael Buter, Christopher Michael, and Annie Tierney have both served. They've all served for less than 2 terms. So if you are interested in reappointing them, you can do it this evening or at the next meeting. And then Clark Holding did the interview, and he did send additional information if you could take a look at that.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to consider him this evening or at the next meeting as well.
So regarding Christopher and Annie and Michael, all three are very, very conscientious, and they attend every meeting, and they are also quite engaged, and they offer different points of view to the Plan Commission, which I think is very good, and they come from a broad demographic as well. So I would move, we could go ahead and reappoint them if you all agree.
Are there any questions or issues with reappointing Michael, Christopher, and Annie?
No, I have none.
And Michael Buter?
Michael, yeah, Michael Buchter and Michael Christopher,
Yeah.
or Christopher Michael and Annie Tierney. Would you all agree to reappoint them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then we will do that. And then we have Steve Hunkins and Jeff Smith, who would like to be reappointed, but will need to be interviewed.
So they will need to be interviewed along with the other applicants, like the policy says. So.
Okay.
Okay. Would you prefer waiting until the next meeting and then we can interview them and finish this board up?
Yep.
Sounds good?
Good.
All right, then that's what we will do, and tell Clark to hold on because we'll make that decision at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, and I think that's it for us in terms of our work session material. Any other questions or issues? We have a closed session, but we're going to do that after the regular meeting.
So we have 2 items. We do have someone joining us for one of the items that is not here yet. I do believe if council wanted to, you would have enough time now before the regular meeting to have one of the closed sessions.
Okay, we could do that. We do have 20 minutes, which would be enough time to we have a lot of folks here. We have a lot of participants, 22 tonight, and we would just put them into a sleep mode.
So
I don't know
long.
how they feel about that.
So
Into a
those of you who are here participating, we're putting you into a sleep mode while we go into a closed session, and we'll be back at 7:30 with you. Thank you.
Number 3, personnel, Missouri statute 610.021, open paren 3, close paren. Was that the right one?
One,
And one, attorney-client privilege communications, Missouri statute 610.021, open paren 1, close paren.
Perfect.
Second.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander is absent and Councilmember Richardson is absent. Okay. Recording on.
Okay, we on? All right, good evening, and we apologize. Our session lasted a little longer, and but we're here with you this evening, and we welcome all of you here. And we remind you that if you want to speak at Remarks of Visitors, you simply raise your hand on that Zoom affair here. So we'll start with a roll call.
Yes, Mayor.
Here.
Mayor Welsh,
Here.
Councilmember Arnold,
Here.
Councilmember Bliss. Here. Councilmember Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Alexander is absent and Councilmember Richardson is absent.
All right, our next agenda item is remarks of visitors, and I see two hands up to
Mayor,
begin with. Three.
before we ask for remarks from visitors, I'd like to read a statement, please. The purpose of my comments is to respond to the comments made by our mayor on February 1st, 2022 at our city council meeting. I read the mayor's comments and picked out specific words that I wanted to address. The sick leave policy. The city's sick leave policy was outdated. It required a change. My main issue is that the city has an unfunded liability for $867,631 of sick leave costs. No assets accrued to address this liability, and this amount is not recorded as liability on the city records. This amount increased the city deficits. The words used was budget woes. The city has had deficit spending for 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2016, 2019. And note, 2018 was not mentioned because it was not a deficit spending year because of Prop P funds. Otherwise, it would have been a deficit year. Then there was the pandemic and the city revenue streams were crippled. Placing blame on Dr. Peoples and her administration for the loss of income during this period is wrong. I do challenge the number of years of clean audits. This is an area I recommend the city manager and the council discuss with our auditors. We need to determine how an $867,631 unfunded liability escaped their audit. The word spending spree was used in her comments. The council, including our mayor, supported each hired position she mentioned: HR manager, communications director, and assistant manager. All these positions are vital to the city. She highlighted DEI consultant. The city had already started the DEI process before Dr. Peoples' arrival. We used an organization named Beloved Community, and the purpose was to engage staff in systemic change. Beloved Community performed an equity audit, and the city council also participated in this audit. The current administration just took the process to the next level, and the entire council supported this move. The words new technology was used in spending spree. City Hall's infrastructure is very outdated. Staff requires the tools to do their job, and technology will only improve job performance. City Hall has no internet. Television in the chamber. City Council approved funding for this equipment either late 2019 or early 2020 with the past administration. Dr. Peoples just completed this project. The City Council's goal was for the community to participate in council meetings via some streaming method, and that was achieved. She mentioned Office 365. Office 365 is a worldwide usage program, and I do not classify this purchase as a spending spree. Our 365 programs will provide our staff with the most up-to-date technology tools to perform their job. If the proper technology had been in place, some staff would have been able to work from home during the most critical peak of the pandemic. The word forensic analysis was used. Without spending money on a forensic analysis, the scope of errors in the fireman's pay would not have been resolved. The forensic analysis revealed errors totaling $157,388, and the errors in the fireman's pay happened in prior administrations. The words compensation and classification consultant. The council approved hiring a consultant to provide current salary information. The goal was to make sure that our staff wages were competitive in the market. The word destruction was used. The only destruction is spreading incorrect information and blaming the current administration for bringing forth errors that happened in the past administration or past councils. There is no hidden agenda to blame past administrations or city councils for errors, and the errors are not manufactured. It is the responsibility of the current city manager and her management team and the city council to address these issues. I thank Dr. Peoples and her administration team for open and honest dialogue with the council and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Then we'll go to
Can I just say one thing? I just want to follow up on one thing in terms of the diversity, equity, and inclusion study and the compensation and classification study. I think those have been absolutely critical pieces of information for us to get during this last year, especially as we go into new collective bargaining agreement with the firefighters and as we really figure out how we can retain employees salary wise, but also because our community has made it very clear that we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is the starting point for us as a city to really do that. And so I just wanted to take a minute and actually thank our staff, because they did, not just the city manager, but the staff of the entire city invested significant time on those projects. And I just wanted to assure them that from my perspective, that was time well spent, that, I hope that we'll proceed very quickly with both of the information we got from both of those.
Right, are we ready to go to hands up? I think our Sebastian Belomo is there.
Mayor and council members, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. I'm Bud Belomo, 118 Summit Avenue. The budget data I will refer to is taken from the city's budget documents that are available to the public on the city's website. I extracted relative data and created a spreadsheet of revenues and expenditures for the budget fiscal years 2012 through 2022. And this is that spreadsheet I put together. I don't know if you can see it or not, but you have copies of it, I believe. In all of those years, the budgets adopted by the council showed general fund expenditures exceeding revenues. And that's the adopted budget by the council. Every one of those years showed expenditures exceeding revenues. I understand that the same is true for the 2002 to 2011 budgets. The general fund, which is for operations, was balanced by transfers in from other funds and dipping into reserves. There's no question that the city's financial situation is dire. Reserves are receding. Expenditures for personnel wages and benefits are about 76% of the general funds, which are the operating funds for the city, and about 62% of all city funds. A big piece of it is public safety, police and firefighters. Expenditures increased from 8.9 million in 2018 to 10.3 million in the new budget, which is a 15% increase. From 2018 to 2021, general fund revenues have decreased from 16.2 million to 14.6 million. That's a decrease of 9.6%. Pay increases and benefits become more and more challenging. We want to stay competitive with other municipalities. There are cost of living increases. There are merit increases. There are hospital and medical insurance increases. that we have to contend with. And for hospital and medical healthcare coverage from 2018 through 2021, healthcare insurance has increased by 9% for police, by 4.2% for firefighters, by 11% for public works. I served on the council from 2016 to 2020, as you know, and I accept responsibility for the situation and my fiduciary responsibility because I did not push hard enough for convincing enough to make changes to the budget format in 2018 and 2020 for the council to direct our former city manager to address the situation. Perhaps some of the impending problems would have been surfaced in the budget, but if they were included in an expenditure narrative that's similar to the revenue narrative. I know there is no easy solution, and the council and city manager have a tough and unpleasant problem. Raise new revenues, reduce the size of the workforce, or a combination of both.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Palomo. Our next hand up is Mr. Hoteling.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity. Am I there now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for the time to speak tonight. I really appreciate it. I too was really upset at the last city council meeting. I thought the mayor's comments directed at the city manager were not appropriate. And from my lens, this is a time to work together, to build on the city's past, to move it forward. This should not be a time of division. And division is exactly what those comments propelled. Differences of opinion, styles, backgrounds, et cetera, should be celebrated. Tough discussions and debate on issues, hard work and understanding is what does move us forward and makes us better. But those comments appeared to me to be calculated and mean-spirited. In fact, Mayor Welch said at the time that she knew she'd face a backlash for uttering them. But more upsetting to me was that there were comments posted on social media ahead of the meeting urging people to tune in because the meeting was, quote, gonna be lit, unquote, and that, quote, the tea might spill, unquote. Citizens knew in advance these comments were coming. So I asked, was the intention of the comments to cause division and anger? If so, well done. If not, I truly hope Dr. Peoples was given a true and sincere apology. I want to thank Dr. Peoples and Eric Peterson for taking a chance on us. Thank you for your experience and for the fresh approach you bring to our city. I want to thank every single Webster Groves employee, whether you were new or have served for 30 years or more. The gifts and talents each of you bring to Webster Groves is truly appreciated. And in my workplace, we know each of us is not as smart as all of us. Finally, I want to thank the entire City Council. You are addressing tough issues while being open to new ways of doing things, talking about Webster Groves becoming a more inclusive community, as well as celebrating longstanding and healthy traditions. Public admonishments and full-page ads in the Webster Kirkwood Times attacking you, filled with half-truths and scare tactics, are not appreciated in my household. It's time we look and move forward as opposed to wanting to preserve the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huddling. Farrell Carfield.
Good evening. This is Farrell Carfield on behalf of the Alliance for Interracial Dignity. Dear council members, thank you for your vision in establishing the Police Community Engagement Board. This new body has shown much promise in advancing fair and professional law enforcement that is responsive to community values. Just this month, the Hicks-Carter-Hicks report showed community recognition of the importance of this ongoing work. The Alliance wishes to share our support for statutory amendments that would strengthen the board and focus its mission. For over a year, we have collaborated with the PCEB and Chief Curtis to find ways to codify lessons learned in the early years of the board and ensure that hard-earned progress is not lost as board members and city leaders come and go. The loss of 2 Black women leaders from the board during this time underscores the difficulty of the PCEB's work and the importance of establishing a board design and culture that honors diverse voices. We are grateful to the PCEB for all the meeting time they dedicated to examining these questions and forming the proposals you now consider. The Alliance began asking for the PCEB after a community-wide conversation about public safety way back in January 2018. Webster Groves has made good progress since then, but we should try to move forward with a greater sense of urgency. We're glad to hear that you plan expeditious passage of these amendments, and we commit to ongoing partnership and service to our shared community. One final note on a separate but related topic. The Alliance commends this council for devoting city resources to transparency and communications, to pursuing equitable compensation structures, and to the diversity, equity, and inclusion audit. We are also grateful for Dr. Peoples' exceptional leadership in shepherding these priorities through challenging times. These are long overdue investments in pursuit of inclusive democracy that benefit all members of this community. It is frankly devastating to see the Preserve Webster Group and Mayor Welch undermine community support in these by calling it a spending spree, especially because we know our mayor fundamentally supports this work. We ask council to stay the course in tending to our most valuable human resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Farrell. Dave Buck?
Got it. Thank you. Now for something completely different. I hope you don't mind. There's a whole lot of seriousness going on in Webster Groves these days. Serious people, serious issues, serious conversations, and a serious election coming up. It's all good. But I think as a 20-year veteran of this community, that at times it is absolutely necessary for our collective mental health and happiness to pause, smile, look for the good, and remind ourselves that life in our wonderful town is often too creative, fun, and mysterious to be taken so damn serious. Which is why I like to sing, Webster Groves, Missouri, as Shakespeare would say, trips along softly on the tongue this way. Webster Groves, Missouri, Webster Groves, Missouri, Webster Groves, Missouri. Let me say it once again. Webster Groves, Missouri, Webster Groves, Missouri, Webster Groves, Missouri. It's the town that knew me when. If you'd like to have a logical explanation, how I happened on this elegant syncopation, I would say without a moment of hesitation, there is just one place that can light my face, and it's Webster Groves, Missouri, Webster Groves, Missouri, not Louisiana, Paris, France, New York, or Rome, but Webster Groves, Missouri, Webster Groves, Missouri, Webster Groves, Missouri, our home, sweet home. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave Buck. Are there any other hands up on there?
I just one more comment. I just want to make a correction. I did make error in saying that City Hall did not have internet. They don't have Wi-Fi.
Okay, with that, we'll continue on to new business. And I want to announce that as of March 1st, we're coming back to in-person meetings and board and commission meetings, council meetings, and we welcome you. We welcome you back with us on March 1st. All right, we're going to move on to the third reading of Bill 9179, Council Member Smith.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of Bill number 9179 and call for subsequent adoption.
Second.
And if I can turn, am I on? Okay. Bill 9179, third reading. An ordinance levying the cost of abating certain nuisances, cut, trim, remove trash and debris, dump fees, etc., as special tax bills against the properties hereinafter described and constituting levies as liens upon the respective properties.
Any questions or issues? Then let's call for the vote.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss. Yes. Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Welch.
Yes. All right. Does anybody care to remove anything from the consent agenda? We should tell the public that on the consent agenda is a temporary liquor license for the Lions Club to sell beer at community days at Eden Seminary. Looks like we're planning on that for the July 4th celebration. Kind of cool. Councilwoman Bliss, could you call for the consent agenda, please?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
All right. I guess we're going to go back. Oh, we've made some appointments to boards and commissions tonight. First of all, we've appointed Jeff Mazer to the Personnel Board. We've reappointed Michael Beckner, Christopher Michael, and Annie Tierney to the Planning Commission. And I guess we are going back into a different closed session. So Councilwoman Arnold, yep.
I assume we're at 1 and 3 and 4?
1 and 4.
1 and 4. All right. Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for an executive closed session under number 1, attorney-client privilege communications, Missouri statute 610.021, open paren 1, closed paren. And I'm sorry, what was the second one?
4.
And then 4, negotiated contract, Missouri statute 610.021, open paren 12, closed paren.
Second.
Oh.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all for participating this evening. We'll see you on March 1st.